1, 2, 3. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another chapter of my very own Creepypasta. If you guys are really enjoying this and liking this, it's at Wattpad.com, Creepypasta FanFiction, A Crystal in the Ruff, Taz 1995. Hope you enjoy. Chapter 13, let's get into it. The photograph above is not mine, all rights to its owners. Crystal was in her room, hands on her chest, breathing heavily. She ran for her life, and she hadn't stopped until she was back in her room. Safely. She had just hoped that Zach was okay and he was on his way here to help her somehow. She was in her room for what felt like forever. It was probably just under an hour when Zach came knocking. When Zach came knocking on her window, Crystal immediately opened it and moved quickly out of his way, hoping he was going to be okay and was going to explain everything that just happened. Everything that had just happened. Zach climbed into her room safely and quickly turned around and closed the window behind him and locked it. And then he turned to Crystal with worry and fear in his eyes. Without really even thinking, Crystal launched herself at Zach and hugged him tightly, not even thinking about him rejecting her or if it was too soon. She just needed to have Zach hold her. She didn't really know why, but she just felt safer in his arms at that moment. Zach hugged her back surprisingly just as hard, almost like he needed to feel her too, and even hugged the top of her head, putting his face into her head and breathing in her scent. After a long moment of just standing there, Crystal felt like she had to say something. "Zach, who was that? What happened?" Zach, Crystal asked, breaking the silence, fear still in her voice. After a moment, Zach kissed the top of her head and ran his hands down the shell of her back, pulled back and gently grabbed the upper part of her arms. He stepped back to look at her. "I'm sorry, Chris. I'm really, truly sorry. I didn't want any of this to happen. I couldn't have imagined I would have caused all this trouble." He sounded horrified and worried and truly sorry, but for what Crystal wasn't sure. Pulling back even more, she looked at him. Crystal asked, "Zach, what happened? What's going on?" Was trying to be understanding, but she wasn't going to pretend that she wasn't frightened or freaked out by what just happened. "I'm so sorry to be so mysterious, Crystal. It's just I'm not entirely sure how to start," he told her, now looking at her wearily and running his hands through his hair together nervously. "What, Zach? Just tell me," she told him. Zach had gave her a look he couldn't place, and then turned around as if beginning to understand, almost like he couldn't look at her as he explained. "Well, I talked to the boss, Slenderman, and told him about me wanting to make you my assistant, and, well, he wasn't entirely happy, to say the least." He let that statement sit for a moment. "He was kind of already mad about me for being gone for so long, and to find out that I was gone after that wasn't the best way to make him any happier. He said I wasn't allowed, and it was against the rules. Proxies can't have their own servants or assistants. He said he would severely punish both of us if it were true somehow." Crystal was now very scared and had somehow managed to speak out in a very clear-cut voice. "And what is he going to do to us? What happens now?" Zach now turned his face towards her, his expression pained and worried. "Well, I told him I started to develop feelings for you, and I might want to keep you as my girlfriend. I didn't want you to be destroyed, and then he told me that was fine. He said he would accept it if you were my love, interest, or some fling, but he never served or proxy my own. If he said he said if you were, he would kill you and maybe your family too." Crystal was stunned. She looked worried. Zach looked worried, almost sick. "Crystal, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I really didn't want to I didn't want to force or push you into anything like this." He turned and stepped closer so that he would have a little bit more in front of her. Crystal just looked at him, trying to think of something to say. On the one hand, she was relieved that Zach was feeling some of same thing she had begun feeling, but at the same time, if she and Zach didn't get together, it would be the end of both of them. Would a relationship like that even last? Wait a minute, what was she even thinking? Had she even fully asked herself if this was anything that she would even wanted? What choice did she really have now? "Crystal, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to be asking you for more than I already have. Honestly, I feel like I have asked and taken too much from you already, and I really have come to like you a lot. But I've really come to like you a lot, and I don't want you to die. I think you might have some feelings for me too. Maybe we can work it out somehow. He then walked over to her and grabbed her hands, both of his, and rubbed them with his fingers until she relaxed a little bit more and was able to breathe more evenly. He Zach looked right into her eyes. Crystal, will you be my girlfriend, and will you be with me as long as you're able to stand being in my presence until the day you decide you no longer want or need me anymore? He said this with so much seriousness that Crystal, even in her frightened state, started laughing and giggling uncontrollably. She was even crying a little bit, like either one of them had a real choice in this matter. It was either date or die. It was the fact that But it was the fact that Zach was trying to go out of his way to make her feel better, like it was still her choice, made Crystal's heart warm. It made her really appreciate Zach and really show just how good a man he really was. Maybe this relationship between them really could work, and this could be a good thing to come out of a bad, horrible situation. Zach wiped a tear from her eye with his finger, weirdly smiled. Is that a yes? He said, this time sounded playfully but hopeful. It's a definite maybe, she giggled, wiping off her eyelids with the back of her hand. Oh, Zach, it's not like either one of us had much of a choice. If we don't, we're dead. But I'm glad that you still tried to give me one anyway. It's sweet of you. Well, you do technically still have a choice. You will just be dead. And I won't really get to appreciate it at all that well. Depends on just how much you hate me and don't want me to be in a relationship with me. He said this jokingly, as he could, as there was a flash of sadness in his eyes. What about my parents or you then? What happens to you? I said maybe Slenderman would kill your family, but more likely he would just erase their memory of ever having you. As for me, he would lock me in one of his many basements and he'd keep proxies in whenever they go AWOL, and I'd be kept there for years and years until they either remember me or decided I've learned my lesson. So I wouldn't die, but it would still suck, love. Crystal just stood there and shook her head. No, Zach, it's fine. I want to be in a relationship with you. I don't hate you, and I don't want you to be locked up forever. And I certainly don't want to be killed. I don't know much about a relationship in general, but I think we can make it work somehow anyway. Zach looked worried but relieved, then guilty. I wish I didn't have to ask you this at all. I'd have already taken so much from you in the short time I've known you. Crystal froze. Does that mean you don't want to be in a relationship with me? No, that's not it. That's not what I meant at all. No, that's not what I meant at all. He hurriedly corrected. I had just wanted to take things slower and get us time to grow things together. But I actually really like you for a long time now, almost since the beginning. But this wasn't how it was supposed to go. He looked sad now. Yet here we are. Crystal said wearily, It's okay, Zach. We're in this together now, and it will be okay somehow. We'll make it work somehow. But secretly she wasn't sure about anything. But that was how things were now. Her and Zach had to be a couple now or be punished by Slenderman. Crystal once again was asking herself how her life had come to this, and was that she had to do, and what she had to do. One thing was for sure. Things were going to be hard from now on. Okay, guys, and that's chapter 13. Hope you liked it, and hope you're liking the story. It's about to get a little bit more spicy as it goes on. As you can see, it's getting a little rough. So anyway, hope you guys like it, and if you really like the story, please check it out on Wattpad. Look for Creepypasta FanFiction Crystal in the Rough, and go to the one that says Taz 1995. Hope you guys are liking this, and hope you guys like listening to it, because more chapters are sure to come. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the